I'm going to share a little bit of work that the Nature Conservancy is doing to help address the barriers to adoption of soil health practices, in this case particularly cover crops and reduced tillage on rented farmland. I want to start out by thanking our donors for this work, the Foundation for Food and Ag Research, I thought I saw, there's Lakeisha, and the Walmart Foundation, and the partners that we've been working with, especially American Farmland Trust and Trust in Food. So why is this important? If you look at a map of rented farmland across the US, in this case, this map where it's darker, there's more rented land. About half of the US farmland is operated by farmers who are renting that land. Most of them also own some. In the Midwest, where the Nature Conservancy is focused on improving water quality outcomes, rental rates are even higher. Some counties in Illinois have up to 86% of the land being farmed by people who are renting. And if you compare that to where we're seeing nutrient loading going into the Gulf of Mexico, there's a high correlation. And we know that soil health practices are about half as likely to be adopted on land that farmers rent compared to land that they own. This makes sense. Most of these are annual leases, and we know that the return on investment for soil health practices takes some time, as Rob showed us before lunch. So why would you put these practices into place on land that you're uncertain to be farming the next year? So we wanted to start out by asking who non-operator landowners, that's the technical term, are. I'll use the acronym NOLS. There's a little bit of information on them from the USDA total survey, but we wanted to know more. So we partnered with American Farmland Trust and Utah State and did a survey. And we started with our focus on Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana. So what do we find? Not surprisingly, most non-operator landowners are 70 or older. About 2/3 of them are retirees. Kind of varied depending on the state, whether they lived on the farmland parcel anymore or not. Many of them are retired farmers, so that's why they would still be living there. About half of them are male. This is a demographic that's shifting. It used to be more male-dominated in non-operator landowners. It's getting closer to 50-50. And they own an average about 200 acres. So there's a lot of them. And we asked about their lease characteristics. Are they written or verbal? This varied a little bit depending on the state. Are they annual? Yes, by and large, these leases are annual. Are they cash rent or crop share? And this is another shift that we're seeing with more and more leases moving to cash rent, which then kind of takes away that need for the landowner and the farmer to be working together and sharing the burden of risk and also the profitability of best practices. So that move to cash rent is a pretty important barrier. We were surprised when we asked about experience in farming. We had expected that these demographics would have shifted more to more and more younger landowners who had less experience with farming, but we're finding that by and large landowners continue to be retired farmers who either have their own or have experience having kind of grown up on the farm with their parents. In Illinois, that middle column, there's a little bit higher ownership by people who have no farming experience. And we asked them about their net farm income. Again, by and large, under $75,000 a year, a few above that. And I'll get back to kind of why that's important in a moment. We also wanted to understand about their relationship with their tenant and their motivations around conservation. We found that landowners and farmers have very trusting relationships, and they want that trust. Landowners trust their farmers. They try to work with them for more than 1 year. Average lease length or average number of years that they lease ends up being about 16 years. They want their farmers to be practicing conservation. They highly value soil health, and they want to keep that farmer on the land. They don't want a lot of turnover. So there's a really close relationship here, and it's something that we can really benefit from. Getting back a bit to this financial motivation, We asked, and this is a question where they could pick multiple reasons for owning the land financially. It adds up to over 100%. But almost 80% of them are driven by that immediate income. And that's half split, about half of them that is their primary income, a lot of these retirees, and half who it's their non-primary income. There was also some interest in owning the land because of its real estate investment and as an estate planning tool. So when you put together the fact that these landowners really trust their growers, the desire to keep land in their family, and these financial motivations, it's no surprise that nearly all of them value conservation and soil health, 96% of the respondents to this survey. And when we asked about their motivations, it's to avoid erosion, maintain soil productivity, and avoid contaminating waterways. They're thinking about what's happening both on and off the farm. However, about half of them feel that there's already enough being done on their farm, and they don't need more information. We asked if they were interested in different resources. 60% were not interested in joining peer groups of other non-operator landowners. Only 55% expressed interest in working with a government agency. They were a little more interested in getting resources that were specifically tailored to them. 69% they said they would use those, and 62% said they would use leasing tools that better account for the costs, benefits, and timelines of adopting conservation. So we know there's an opportunity here, and we want to explore more about what we could do to help these farmers and landowners come together to increase the adoption of soil health on rented farmland. So we worked with Trust in Food, which is a group from the Farm Journal Media, and asked them to start off by conducting some focus groups. So they did focus groups in Illinois, Indiana, and Iowa, some with just farmers, some with just landowners. And they did them this spring, which is important context. It was a very wet spring, so that might have influenced a little bit what was on folks' minds. So the results of that message testing. So first on farmers, we asked the farmers to rate the influence of their landowners on farm practice decisions. In Illinois and Indiana, it was relevant. They said they did consider the influence of their landowners on their farm practice decisions, not so much in Iowa. We asked what it takes, what they're thinking about when they're deciding what parcel to try to lease when something new is up for rent. In Illinois and Iowa, drainage, again, it's a very wet spring, but drainage was absolutely the most important aspect of the land they were looking at, and whether they already had the equipment that would work for that parcel. In Indiana, more factors were at play. It included soil test results, historical yields, field characteristics like shape and size, proximity to existing land that they farm. Interestingly, the tenant turnover. They said if there's a lot of turnover on that parcel, we want to know why. And they listed landowner mentality as one of the factors as well. So they didn't say they needed all of these factors to be perfect, but they were all considerations when they were deciding whether or not to try to lease a new piece of land. We asked about their interest and their comfort in talking to landlords about farmland concerns. Again, these are very close relationships, and across the board, they said that they're comfortable talking to their landlords, but they also said they wanted to see more information tailored to non-operator landowners. They felt that if more information were available to highlight the benefits of conservation as it relates to the landlords, that communication, that conversation would be better informed. What about the non-operator landowners? So we wanted to get a little deeper into their motivations in owning the land. And there are certainly financial motivations. We saw those in our survey. But across the board, every landowner, it was really driven by heart. They have a connectedness to this land. And that was really interesting when it comes to thinking about the management of the farm. A few of them had used land managers in the past, but once they felt comfortable with their tenant, they felt close enough to the land that they felt like they could be part of that conversation directly with the farmer. So they did not have a lot of desire across the board to use land managers. And so again, not surprisingly, every one of them said soil health is a top concern. However, they still defer to the tenants on which practices improve soil health. So we're starting to see a pattern here. We need to give non-operator landowners that connection between practices and soil health and the conservation outcomes on the ground. One thing that was common between farmers and landowners when we asked about investment in the land, they all saw soil health practices as a short-term investment. And they all agreed that short-term investments are up to the farmer. Longer-term investments, such as drainage tile, are up to the landowner. So these barriers are starting to get a little confounding, right? We asked the landowners about economics. They agree the economics of the farm on a year-to-year basis are the responsibility of the tenant. When we asked what information landowners wanted to hear about soil health and what it would take to be a trusted source, this is one of the reasons why the Nature Conservancy is working so closely with Soil Health Institute and Soil Health Partnership. You all have the information landowners need. They want to hear about university verified results, research that spans long periods of time, regionally tested study, evidence that these practices are connected to a farmer's profitability, and validation from trusted peers. One of the problems with disseminating this information, however, is that farmers have a farming community. Non-operator landowners do not have a community, and they told us they're not interested in one. So how do we get to them? So we are continuing to work with Trust in Food, helping give farmers the information they need to open up this conversation with their landowners. We want to give them evidence on the return on investment of these practices for both the farmer and the landowner. Increase greater trust and understanding. So this is about getting those messages out through trusted people to non-operator landowners. Making the case for cost share opportunities for these practices that non-operator landowners can be part of, whether those are government cost share or cost share between the landowner and the grower. And we want to relate soil health practices to improve drainage. Again, drainage came up over and over and over again. Could have been the wet year, still an important issue every year. So we're going to do some messaging to non-operator landowners. It's not going to be easy. They're dispersed. But the key themes we'll have are educating them on the link between the practices on the ground and soil health. If you care about soil health, you need to see these practices on your farm. You need to support your farmer in putting these practices into place. We want to share information through trusted voices, through other non-operator landowners, cooperative extension, showing them long-term field-scale data and the evidence of farmer profitability. And we want to get to that heart piece. They want to pass this land down in their family. We want to connect soil health to that land legacy. And we want to share case studies of profiles and success stories. So we are looking forward that messaging launch will start in August and go through December. Looking forward to seeing the results of that and to working with you all to continue to address this issue. Thank you.